The Talk Station presents Faith Matters, a look at contemporary stories and issues from a faith perspective. While this is a pre-recorded show, we are interested in your ideas, comments, and questions, and we urge you to email them to faithmatters@thetalkstation.com.
Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life.
And now on the Talk Station, Faith Matters.
And welcome to the program for this week. I'm Ben Ball, along with Reverend Robert Cornigan and Bishop Doc Loomis, joining us today for Faith Matters. And let's get right into it. Our first article today comes from the New York Times. And Robert, what is the title again? It's God May Forgive Ads That Offend But Customers Probably Won't. It's written by Michael McCarthy. And it recalls some of the ads that have been in popular media, some in the U.S. and some elsewhere, that invoke God or heavenly images or the like. And it starts out with the one, just read the opening paragraph, says, like a polite guest at a dinner party, the advertising industry typically avoids bringing up religion. But there are some advertisers, including Ram Trucks and the smartphone accessories company Mophie, that have made God or prayer a part of their campaigns, albeit very carefully. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy, says John Hegarty, a founder of Battle Bogle Hegarty, an ad agency in London. If done right, it can inspire religious or spiritually minded consumers to act, but if done wrong, it can alienate an audience, he said. They give a couple of different examples. One was a McDonald's ad, which I was surprised at the negative reaction it got. In fact, we've talked about that one on this show before. The ad that combined about McDonald's, the employees, how the individual franchises employees react to disasters or react to different things that go on using their marquee as a message board. And so, like, God protect the USA, God gave us a miracle, remember 9/11, and others there too. Or the Ram Trucks commercial that said, so God made a farmer, uses the old voiceover of Paul Harvey. Correct. Talking about that, reading a poem. And so let's start there, which is some of these that use religion in this positive, less satirical way before we get to some of the others. Robert, do you have a problem with any of it?
No, the satirical ones, of course, they can go over the line real quickly, but those that are, particularly when it's at one of those moments where the country's trying to come together, for instance, after 9/11 and all of that. There was a lot of that going on, and we're kind of desperate for a higher power here. We're hoping that there's something going on beyond what we just see going on, and so we're looking for some comfort, and so they're picking up on that. Now it's for commercial purposes. Obviously, there are a lot of businesses, corporations that have foundations. Sure. And they actually have budgets for goodwill. And they spend money towards putting a positive front
for altruism
on their business. And so it may happen differently in different mediums, but in the television commercial world, of course, I don't know if you've been to a movie lately. I know you haven't, but since the 1980s.
You talking to me, boy?
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Doc.
1981.
1981.
Tarzan of Greystroke.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. But when you go in the theater now, it's all about commercials.
Oh, yeah.
It's the commercials you see on TV, or the...
Some of them have been altered for, like, the Geico commercial that tells you to turn off your cell phone. That's just a regular...
exactly. Yeah. So you wouldn't... It's a different world in there, brother. But, it's going on. I don't see a problem when they get... it's funny how the satirical ones always seem to pick on the same focus to satirize, which is often Christianity or some form, some.
Well, you get riots if you do some other religions.
Well, right, exactly.
You just get op-ed pieces if you criticize Christianity. This is, but the McDonald's one in particular, one reason I thought it was, I was surprised when that got criticism was it was basically honoring the people who work at McDonald's. It was telling about the things that they do in a community, and it was high, and it was more than just the marquee messages. They were showing them passing out water during disasters, or doing some other things, or the way they were treating people or honoring employees. Recognizing a birth of a child, of somebody.
Correct.
So it was more than just the messages that said God in them. But so I was surprised a little bit at the reaction to that one. Now the one with the Ram trucks one was much more overt.
It was.
And memorable, though, because it used an icon, not a religious one, but the icon of Paul Harvey. And that's why there was a generational thing. A generation remembered it and was attracted to that.
The voice of God himself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right.
Yeah, well, I come out of advertising as a living. I was an ad director for a Fortune 500 company, and one thing I can tell you is advertising is always about tapping into the zeitgeist, what's going on, and then trying to move within it. Kind of wear it like sheep's clothing to get people to follow you to your particular brand, product, whatever. That's just the way it works. So it's really not an advertising company, or it's really not Walmart's job to convince you God is good or God is bad. That's not the interest. It's just if they know there's an area, like you're going to see a lot more commercials that feature U.S. military in them here in Eastern Carolina than you will ever see in Cleveland, Ohio. You see, I can't remember seeing a commercial that features, because there's military here. In the same way, you're more like, and that's the way, as you well know, Ben, having been in the business.
Right.
This is the way that ad placement works. So you can do a commercial with any number of races or I don't know, arguments to be made, and you put them in different places around the country.
Right, sure.
And that's just so all these guys
It's all about
are doing,
targeting an audience.
Yeah, so when these guys target, that's exactly what they do. And they'll put a little bit of God in it, and that'll appeal to the godly people. They don't want to put too much God in it, because that'll turn off the ungodly people. But they don't want to do too many ungodly things, because that'll turn off the godly people. So they're gonna keep moving. It's a constant balance that they're trying to achieve.
Tennessee Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota's quote is cited in this article. It's appearing in ads for St. Thomas Health, a chain of Catholic hospitals in Tennessee. In one spot, Mr. Mariota taps his heart 3 times for his mother, father, and brother, then points to the heavens to give thanks. The tagline, "Nothing shall be impossible," it's Catholic hospitals. I mean, if there's ever going to be a reference to holy inspiration, I would think it would be there. And yet they've received criticism for that.
Yes, of course. It's horrible. I can't believe he did it personally. I can't believe that 20 million people watch football games every weekend where guys do this every time they go across the goal line.
Exactly.
And so here's a guy doing kind of what he does on the field.
Right.
He's doing it with, it's not the Roman or the Orthodox cross.
No.
It's not Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's Mommy, Daddy, Brother.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's just kind of a guy doing what he does on it's a football move, okay?
Yeah.
It's not a Jesus move, but somebody saw somebody. I guess anytime we touch ourselves on the chest, we're proclaiming our undying love of Jesus. I guess that's the way it is. I love that he did this. I thought it's very touching. And in fact, the thing about the commercial is it has nothing. It is only about somebody stepped into my life and cared about me, and I want to say thank you for that.
Right.
Not
Exactly.
God, it was his coach. It was people in his life
Right.
that he was talking about. It's
Now, the article also goes on to talk about one of the ones that uses satire.
Yeah.
And I, frankly, I love this spot. It was from Mophie. I remember when it came out. In Super Bowl, you're watching ads. You're watching Super Bowl for the ads a lot of times. Often the game is boring. But so some companies put a lot into the one shot they have. They may not be doing massive advertising everywhere. So this company, Mophie, which made a battery charger for cell phones, puts an actor. They have this scene where there's burning bushes and dogs walking humans and snowstorms in Africa, and there's this actor comes in and says, "Gosh darn it." And the tagline says, "When your phone dies, God knows what can happen." It's somebody playing God in heaven. And I thought it was hilarious, actually. Robert, what about you?
Yeah, I think
I didn't think it went over the line.
Yeah, one of the it gets real close. One of the things that is so powerful about these advertisements that do have sort of a religious, if you will, tinge to them, is that they're so rare that when they do come on,
right,
you notice. You just, because the majority of the ads that come on, I mean, how much attention do you pay to them? You really don't. I mean, some of them are really funny. It's true, but the majority of them.
I pay attention to all the Liberty Mutual insurance ones, where all these very surprising and poorly dressed people stand in front of the
Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty.
Brilliant. I can hit the mute button in under a half a second when those come on.
Exactly. So the fact that these things are being done, thank goodness, thank the Lord that it's not on all the time, that it is a rare thing.
Yes.
And so that when they put it up, so I'm glad of that, because otherwise it could push towards sacrilegious.
I have to watch myself because I like religious satire. I like Monty Python and Blessed Are the Cheesemakers. I like those things.
Well, you're a Monty Python guy, so you were warped early in your life.
the media exec for that company that did the Mophie ad, I thought had a brilliant line. He said about God, he says he's the only endorser you can find with 100% awareness and no cost for the talent.
Yeah.
So
there may be a cost later on, my friend.
He says he takes that same attitude. This is Faith Matters here on the talk station FM 107 and AM 1240, and we'll have more to come in a moment. Welcome back to Faith Matters here on the talk station, FM 107 and AM 1240. And I'm Ben Ball, and joined by Bishop Doc Loomis, who is Bishop in Residence at All Saints Anglican Church. Also, Reverend Robert Cornegie, Associate Pastor, Chapel by the Sea in Emerald Isle. And let's move to an article here that's in, from Huffington Post in their religion section. It's called Why This Group of Atheists, Agnostics, and Seekers Love Christmas. The article begins, it's written by Carol Karuk-Villa, I'm not sure how to say that, but about 900 revelers crowded into London's Union Chapel last Thursday ready to sing their hearts out. There were atheists, humanists, agnostics, spiritual seekers, and many things in between, and they were there for a Yule Rock concert, a joyous celebration of Christmas. Many members of this merry crowd were fans of Sunday Assembly, the secular congregation that organized the event. Although Sunday Assembly is often called the Atheist Church, nearly 3 years after it was formed, the community has become a space for both secular and spiritual people of all stripes. There are now locations in the UK, North America, Australia, and Africa. In line with their motto, to live better, help often, and wonder more, London's Assembly has formed a smaller community groups around nearly every hobby and interest. And here, one of the hobbies and interests was actually choral singing. And they felt like they weren't able to do that in a secular fashion. I don't know if they've ever watched the Pentatonics then. But so they gathered together this Yule Rock. They put this together to have groups sing and songs, and they sing pop songs and other things. But they also center it around Christmas, which also has gathered the interest of a lot of people like us in commentating on it. Doc, I mean, they're allowed to do this. I mean, there's not no law against it, but is it anything to do with Christmas?
They're not allowed to do this. They didn't ask me. I know that.
Ask
hey, there's actually a Sunday Assembly in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. That's pretty well attended. There are a lot of them. I don't know how many there are in the States, but there's a lot of these things, and they speak to this whole idea of the fact that community has disappeared for a lot of people.
Right.
And when I first started reading about Sunday Assembly, I asked myself, so why is this such a popular thing? Is it because of the small groups? Is it because of the singing? Is it because people from all different thought processes and religious backgrounds come together? And it's really not so much that, I think, as just this desperate desire to have community that doesn't exist. Why? Because largely our families are becoming broken up, and as parts of broken families, communities on a breakdown right away. Because I think in part because we're a very mobile society. I live 680 miles away from my mother. I'm not in the community I was in. And frankly, I think there's a third side to that too, which is the church, which has been for years a dominant community. The church has really not done a terribly good job of blessing, creating, and engaging community. We've actually done a little bit of the opposite. We've actually become, as our society's become more secularized, we've separated ourselves even more and removed ourselves from a community. Most people would rather be a moose right now, or an eagle, or a Kiwanian than they would to join my church.
I thought you were talking about literal animals at first.
I know you did. Yes.
And then you added the koalas.
I was trying to think of one that wasn't an animal. Apparently, there are a lot of
You left
animal
out the
groups.
elks.
Yeah,
The
you
elks,
left out
I
the
did.
elks, yes.
Sorry, Elkians.
But I think that also on that point, churches have lost their neighborhoods.
Yes.
I mean, churches, you used to be, in our church, we have a bell out front that used to be run. And that would signal, and people would come out of their neighborhoods or their houses and walk to church. And so we've talked about how do we start that back up again? How do we get that going? And because I've looked around at our meetings and sometimes said, hardly any of you live here anymore.
Well, I got to tell you, the other thing I love about this thing is the emphasis on community groups. Churches try to do community groups. Do you have community groups at your church, Robert?
Yes.
Okay.
Call them life groups.
Life groups. That's very advanced and novel.
Yeah,
I like that. Okay. So the idea of
from his
having
worship
community
team.
groups is great, but the idea of doing like-minded groups is what I love. And that's actually what the Sunday Assembly, the church should take a big look at how these work. Remember back when you were a kid and your grandmother was a part of the knitting circle or the quilting circle?
Sewing
of the church,
circle.
Sewing
Yeah.
circle. Yeah. And they fixed the sheets for the local hospital, or they mended shirts for farmers or whatever. Well, that's gone. Now, if you're at a group in a church, you're studying a book, or you're in Acts or Romans or whatever the latest thing is, but you're not in a group of like-minded people. One of the things we started doing this last year with our missions ministry, First Flight, with our art ministry, the gallery, is take people who are like-minded and put them in a room and let them worship together and let them study together, but let the thing that draws them together be the thing that they love and the talent they have. These guys have done this, and I think this is what's really bringing people together.
So, are there lessons to be learned here?
Well, of course, you can glean a lot of really good from this. And it reinforces that concept of worship, music, the key role that music plays when we do come together. And of course, I'm sure they got around to "Peaceful, Easy Feeling" somewhere along the way. And
they sang Wham! Song in there.
So there is that, and there's the scripture popped in my mind as I was reading is that religious nature of all of us, and worship is really kind of that form where we literally sing together, same lyrics, probably not on the same key or any of that, but we're combining our voices together, and it has a form of godliness. There really is a sort of form of godliness that we're all looking for, that's kind of to fill that emptiness inside of us. And worship has always been, the place where that can happen. Remember what Lucifer, the angel of light, what his role was in the heavens. He was the leader of worship. And so it's a very powerful experience to be able to come together and do that. And that's why it's so powerful in churches when we are all I hate to say this, but a lot of churches kind of do this. They call themselves churches, and really they're just sort of singing to hear themselves sing and to get that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling of singing together, rather than literally as an act of worship to a being beyond their
That horizontal and
there
vertical
can.
that you're talking about.
Yeah, they just can't. We can't figure all this out, and so all we can do is raise our voices together. So that's the element. It's that they have the form of godliness, but they deny the power there. So you get a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling, peaceful feeling, but you don't make that connection.
Do you think that for a lot of these groups, though, it is about they have awareness of something greater, and maybe they're finding it in the power of community, but there is awareness there.
Well, yeah, I would just to take that analogy back to the worship side of it is that I think there is where they're sensing an emptiness that they just don't have. And they're looking outside of themselves. Now, the problem is that Satan will kind of make us think that we can do it together ourselves. I call it the Nimrod syndrome. And that's what Nimrod did. Remember, he set up, when he was building the Tower of Babel, he kind of got the people thinking that we can do this.
We can become
do
God.
this ourselves. Yeah. We don't really need God.
Right.
In this process, because we have the capacity to do this ourselves. So to me, that's the dangerous hook of this, is that when you start thinking that somehow we're doing something together that is going to have almost eternal.
Well, we're still in a culture, we're still in a time culturally where we remember what it used to be like. See, this is really I think this group that's hanging around with these atheist churches, as they call them, they're really the last group my age and younger who can remember going to Grandma's house for Christmas. And if you read this article carefully, what you see is these are people who are trying to recapture a memory. They don't even know what it was about that memory that makes it so sweet. But they can see that on the outside there was food, and there was music, and there was gift giving, and there was laughter, and there was coming together. And I think a generation removed from this, that memory's too far gone unless the church reclaims that ground through the evangelization of souls and the introduction of Jesus back into this culture. If we don't do our job, this is a sign to me that we are one generation away, because this is the last of the memory people, I think, right here.
Interesting. It's fascinating, too, what's going on. We see it I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen this new phenomenon about coloring books?
No.
There is a new adult
coloring books?
Coloring book
movement. I was given one for Christmas. I was.
Well, there are, and this is another one of your affinity groups. There are groups of people coming together to do coloring books. And what is that telling you?
It tells me what I've known for 36 years of ministry, because every time I walk through the pews and clean up the papers, I find bulletins filled with pictures and doodles and colorings that I know perfectly well adults have done because they've signed them.
It's a reach back.
It's control. It is. Listen, it is that, but it's also control. What coloring has always been about:
staying in the lines,
staying inside those lines. And when I can't control my life, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to the next Star Wars movie and watch how they do it. I'm going to get a coloring book. I know that's a real stretch, Star Wars, the coloring book, but
it's a good segue.
I promise
it's a good segue, because we're going to talk about that next.
I did not know that. Are we? Oh, I can't wait to talk about Star Wars, a movie I've never seen.
Yes, that's right.
But I think it is a little.
You'll be an expert
of it
here shortly.
Being in control, having the ability to be in control.
More to come in a moment here on Faith Matters on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. And welcome back to Faith Matters here on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. And thank you for making us part of your Sunday morning. And joining us is Reverend Robert Cornegy and also Bishop Doc Loomis. We're talking about different articles in the news from this last week or two as we round out the year and begin the new year. This article captured a lot of attention, made actually national news in a lot of places, about a Filipino priest reprimanded for a Christmas Eve hoverboard stunt. I couldn't wait to bring this article to you guys too. The one I'm quoting is from CNN. It says a priest in the Philippines has been reprimanded by church leaders for his creative idea to get worshipers moving during a Christmas service using a hoverboard. On Christmas Eve, the priest, who hasn't been named, used the toy to glide in and out of rows of churchgoers while singing a Christmas song in English and Tagalog, which was caught on camera and has since gone viral. His parishioners seemed to enjoy the performance, with many taking photos and video. His bosses, though, weren't so pleased. He's been reprimanded by church leaders who criticized his use of what might have been an early present. The video, I have to give the props to the priest for being able to even do that, to be on that hoverboard and hold a microphone and sing and know where he's going and not fall off, because just that act alone was tough.
That's pretty much a miracle.
But let's talk about the connotation, though, as far as being in a church service, expression of faith. Bishop Loomis.
I love it. The best thing about this is he gets put on a kind of ecclesiastical leave, administrative leave, assuming leave with pay. I don't know. But the thing that's great about this is, and it says he's going to be out of the parish for a while and will reflect on his actions. Trust me, he is at home right now running that hoverboard through his neighborhood. I don't think I think this was brilliant. If you have not seen the video, please, all of you, turn off the radio show now. Go to YouTube and immediately just type in the words Filipino priest reprimanded, and you will see, well, maybe type in hoverboard.
Priest
because it could have
hoverboard.
been anything. Type in hoverboard.
Priest hoverboard
and
will do
watch
it.
this guy go up and down the aisle. He is, to my mind, he's in persona Christi to the max here. He is actually doing the thing God does. God in Genesis hovers over the water. God in Deuteronomy hovers over the city of Jerusalem. God is a hoverer. So here's a guy trying to be godly. He's doing a little hover thing. What's the harm here, Robert?
Besides I'd pay to have video of Robert on a hoverboard.
Oh man, yeah,
It'd be a short
It
one.
would be one of the world's shortest video. I'm
Maybe,
afraid.
yeah, 6-second Vine is what it would be.
Robert does not like that. I can tell he does not. You would not do this.
No, I'm into props.
Really?
Believe me.
What's the weirdest prop you've ever used in church?
Weirdest prop.
Oh, I can tell you mine.
I've used an exploding Bible that burst in the fire and smoke come out of the Bible when it.
That's pretty good.
Anyway, that was a long time ago. And the only thing
Was it made by the
to
same
this
people as Hoverboard?
day, that was probably
Is there
20 years
Chinese
ago.
battery in it?
20 years ago, and to this day, I have people come up and say,
Yeah.
"That's the best message you've ever given."
But we have all done. You've done a prop, right?
I baked bread in church.
Yeah.
I had the bread maker going, and I got to the point where I was doing
you
a
doing
sermon about
communion?
bread. I was doing a sermon about bread, and I got to the point where I was going to say that it was this concluding thing, and it went ding.
Ding.
It was done.
Perfect timing.
It was as perfect timing as it could be.
Was there a point to this?
Sure, I was talking about the bread of life, and he actually told about how to make it. How to
Okay,
make
let's
bread.
hear yours.
What's
Oh,
your
there have been
best
so
prop?
many. I will tell you one. The best one was when I was back. This is about 25 years ago. I was a little bit younger and more agile, and I had just joined the fire service, and I had about a 20-foot A-frame ladder up in the front of the church, and I was doing the sermon as I was climbing up the ladder. I don't even remember what it was about. Something about attaining
Jacob's
greatness or the Tower of
ladder.
Babel. Who knows what it was. But I got to the top of the ladder, and I swung my leg over the ladder, and I sat down on the ladder to deliver the balance of the sermon, and my pants got caught in a rivet, and I couldn't get off the ladder, and I had to stay there. And my pants ripped right down the middle of the, there. So I had to stay up on the ladder until everybody left the church before I could come down. That's a prop fail.
Yeah, that
Call
is.
Yes.
That is. Yeah,
That's about as
Yeah.
bad as
I
it
don't
gets.
think his failed. He made it through, didn't he? He didn't fall or anything.
No.
It's just he fell from grace.
The criticism,
By
yes.
his-
All right. The criticism from his hierarchy was that he wasn't taking the Eucharist seriously.
Yeah.
Wasn't taking the solemnness of the Mass seriously. But what about that criticism of it?
Well, okay. First of all, the Eucharist being the whole of the service, obviously he probably celebrated the Mass up until this point with all due respect, and I'm sure it was matchless. But then in the end, a little hoverboarding.
Well, he's singing a Christmas song as
but
he's doing it.
it's the kind of the end. It's like the final blessing. Now let's all go and celebrate with our families and get on our hoverboards. And I just don't know if one of my priests did this during the celebration at the table. If somebody came riding out into the church and read the gospel on a hoverboard, probably have words with him. For somebody to kind of conclude a service, gosh, I don't know. I'm just really not all that upset by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'd been more impressive to me if he had longer robe and you wouldn't seen the hoverboard. He was just floated along.
He may have tried it that way, and the hoverboard
that would have been tough.
Probably didn't cooperate with that little thing right there.
It was hard enough as it was. But the idea was, are there things? I went to the Corsown Waterfowl Museum, and the lady at the desk remembered when I used a box of all detergent as a prop in a sermon. It was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and when I was a lay speaker, and she remembered it. Yeah, so that's the things you hope for, is that somebody will remember something about the sermon, and she knew, and she remembered why I used it, which was the best thing. Yeah,
when it works, it's great. When it doesn't work, it's dismal. If this guy had taken a dive, it would have probably not been helpful.
Yeah,
but he's good.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy is really seriously good.
It's effortless almost. I mean, he's obviously not. He had practiced this thing.
But again, are props in church or these sorts of at what point we've talked about? Remember we had the guy that did the boxing.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with Doc on this one, that there's a time and a place for everything. You just want to make sure you're doing it in the right time at the right place, and it can even happen in a worship service, but it has to be the right time and in the right spirit. And then, obviously he'll be
remembered.
He will be remembered. That was the one. Go down in the history books.
Now, like a lot of things that happen, as we saw, remember with the one who gave away the big tips for pizza, would order the pizza, and they would then bless the pizza delivery person. Will this catch on? Will there be some more hoverboards in churches?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, there have already been. I mean, what was the guy down in Brownsville? The guy in Florida. Oh, the big Pentecostal movement that started down there. I've just lost it. I can't remember.
Yeah, Brownsville.
He rode a motorcycle on stage, drove right off the stage, and busted himself up.
Yeah.
This is not new.
Right.
When it comes to being relevant, pastors are, they're great. They're great at finding stuff to do. And this is, the people said, well, it looks like he's trying to be relevant. Well, yeah, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, from a sacramentalist standpoint, we have a lot of props in church. I mean, we do. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is look around the sanctuary. I mean, I wear a prop around my neck every week. Mm-hmm. We carry props. We process with props. We light props. And all those props have a meaning. So, and it would be silly to have a prop. And this is where I'm going to argue with myself, because no one's going to argue with me. I would say that if he were using this hoverboard, and if it had a meaning, if it were God hovering over the waters at creation, hovering over the city of Jerusalem, I could kind of see that. But I don't like props that don't have a real meaning. Mm-hmm. I don't know what your laundry detergent meant, but I'm sure it had a meaning.
Yeah, it was about the all-encompassing word of all, and what we consider God to be.
There you go.
So,
I don't think this hoverboard probably had any really life-changing meaning.
But like you said, if it were in the right place, when it's in the final blessing, when it's in this part where you're talking about your family and going and enjoying your time together. Maybe that is the right place for that.
It'll be interesting to see how many church services now are the message is brought from a hoverboard. I got a feeling not many.
Everybody listening right now from All Saints Church is going, please do not
do this.
Do not do
Doc,
this.
Forget this.
It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. No, and Chapel by the Sea, you're safe. I'm not going to get on a hoverboard.
However, everybody's going to have their cell phone charged.
Because God knows what happens when it's not. That's right.
That's right. This is a time, though, I think when you're looking at trying to be relevant, a lot of people are, and they're trying to find out in the other things that happen in our society, and they're often terrible things, and we try to bring maybe a little levity into a church, just to so that people can be, I don't know, brought together in a different sense of community, laughing together.
Well, relevance is kind of the point, isn't it? I mean, really,
It is.
We are all relevant, whether we call ourselves church relevant or not. We are relevant. We change the words we use. We change the phrases we use. We change the kinds of stories we use in our illustrations and sermons to things that are more relevant. We don't really talk so much about farmers and seeds because we're not a part of an agrarian culture anymore. So we talk about banks and money and boats and things that we know here, and that's being relevant, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The parables, and again, we're kind of straying off the hoverboard illustration, but the whole purpose of the parables was to link the people to the reality, to bring, truth is what corresponds to reality, and so getting people to the truth is really what we're all about. So if it involves a hoverboard, so be it.
We'll have more to come in a moment here on Faith Matters on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. Hey, welcome back to the program here on Faith Matters on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240. And I'm Ben Ball, along with Reverend Robert Cornegy and Bishop Doc Loomis. And we're talking about different articles in the news. Of course, some of the big news from this past a couple of weeks has been the introduction of the new Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens. And so there is an article in the Washington Times that's it's actually reflecting an article by Andrew Pritchett that says Star Wars Episode 7, a spoiler-free review with Christian theological reflection. There's been an awakening. Have you felt it? $100 million of pre-sold North American tickets, over $14 million worth of day one revenue. It's over $1 billion now, by the way. Yeah. And the most purchased ticket on Fandango in its history. Say you should have. Think about that. A movie franchise that dates to 1977 is the most purchased ticket ever on Fandango, more than any of the Lord of the Rings or superhero film. Given this sort of money, we must pay attention. Literature has been joined by television and film as being applied to philosophy, ethics, and even theology. If you want to know how to speak to our children, friends, neighbors, and coworkers about Jesus, God, the church, and the gospel, it would not hurt to be somewhat attuned to what The Force Awakens is telling and asking us. I did bring up the new Star Wars movie when I was doing a children's lesson a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you did?
I brought it up and said, if I say to you, the Force is with you, do you know what that means? And they did. Several of them knew that it was Star Wars. One had seen it in the opening weekend, and they all knew it. And I turned around to the congregation and said, if I say to you, may the Force be with you, what should you say in return? And also with you. Yeah, sorry. So.
Oh, Methodist. So much fun on a Sunday morning.
So
you're going to have to get you a hoverboard.
Yeah, notice he's the only one of us that did not say he wasn't bringing a hoverboard.
Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat.
if you could,
if I had the right insurance. All right, now let's talk about this though, because frankly, I saw the movie and I thought it was a lot of fun. Now I'm not going to go into this and see a lot of theological reflection, but what about you, Robert? You've seen it as well.
Yeah, I went with my 12-year-old grandson.
No, that's how you do that.
Yeah. And so, interestingly, he's seen more of the Star Wars movies than I have. Mm-hmm. I saw the first few, and then when it got to Jabba Binks or whatever his name,
well, yeah,
that's when they lost me.
Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, the Binks guy,
yeah,
whatever,
right.
that character. And so, yeah, I haven't been in that realm for a while. The Force hasn't been with me for a while. But it was the thing I liked about it was that it was definitely, it had the new kids on the block,
right? The new characters,
yeah, for the series to continue, and they're pretty much wiping out all the old guys, our crowd, as we go. Spoiler alert!
Right.
So if you haven't seen it yet, turn your radio off right now. But no, I'm not going to give it. But yeah, it had the older characters that we all.
And they were in it a lot more than I thought they would be. So.
Yeah, so it was a nice blend. It was kind of a throwback to the old days. Yeah.
Well, J.J. Abrams, I think, purposely wanted to have that feel of the original and the 1977 movie and the two sequels there, not the prequels, not all of that stuff. So it was like an old friend.
Yeah.
Going to see that movie really was. If you like the original, it was like an old friend. Now Doc has not seen any of it.
Doc has never seen.
I wish you at home could see the two of them looking at me with such incredulity. No, I haven't. I have no interest in Wookiees or stormtroopers or plasma galactic blasters or whatever they do in that movie.
Be careful, he's going to start mixing in Star Trek references.
Well, whatever. This is all stolen material, and this is Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
From the opening credit forward, it's Flash Gordon.
Well, almost all science fiction is.
Is all Flash Gordon?
It's stolen material, yeah.
Well, I've seen Flash Gordon, and I've read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty well advanced in this category, I think, and I can speak intelligently. However, this stuff right here, where people what's the language they speak?
Tatooine.
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know that. I mean, they speak a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they all understand each other.
Yes,
by the way, too.
yes, and people practice these languages.
Well,
it's like the ones that do the Star Trek languages.
Yeah.
They go beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, they know.
Some kid said that to me in the store the other day. I punched him. I had no idea what he was saying to me, but I was sure it wasn't nice. No, it is an amazing cultural phenomenon, from the John Williams theme music to that. How's it go in the beginning? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
You're close. Close.
What? Am I going to get that wrong too?
Yeah, well, yes, but that's okay. You're forgiven. But the other part of this article again this article appears. Trying to remember where it's in the Washington Times, and it's again Andrew Pritchett writing this. He says that I went to the movie expecting to interact with Jedi sage wisdom, and I was not disappointed to find it mainly absent from the movie. Instead, as mentioned above, the ideas of The Force Awakens are found in their applications. As you watch the movie, be ready to look for questions and the beginnings of answers to them. Be ready to think upon the lines below. What is your answer when things turn rotten from a place of hope? What does this do to your confidence, your trust for the promise of the future? What happens when the plot of life takes a tragic, unexpected twist? Now, we have brought up these similar themes before when we've talked about real life tragedies that happen, and then also when we've had this discussion about zombies. About zombie
not on the air yet, but very soon.
Yes.
Wait for it, folks.
Yes, about a similar kind of understanding of apocalypse, about what draws us to apocalyptic literature is there must be hope at the end of it. There must be something that will get us to the end in a good ending.
Well, that really is what makes it a good story. Particularly this one, I think, which has gone back to so many familiar themes that we can kind of follow it a lot. But for me, it's a great sequel and not a prequel. And
right.
Yeah, I have trouble with those.
Yes.
But the sequel is great because, basically their devastation has happened. The dark side has...
I can't believe you're ruining this for me.
I'm not going to go far in it.
I'm not going. It's okay.
Yeah, I know you're not going to go. But, we're seeing that hope abounds even in to use the biblical terms, in the valley of the shadow of death, that there is a hope. And you can see this kind of played out in the as it goes through. And that's what my grandson and I talked about as we rode back home, and I was asking him. Of course, he had to make him put down his little game that he was playing on, but and I tried to pry some concepts out of him along these same lines of what did you think when the bad guy looks like he's winning over, and they've built up these characters pretty well so that you could, even if you didn't have the history, you could still identify with them. And and he was you could see him cycling it through his biblical worldview of trying to put the pieces together, that there will be, that hope prevails, that truth, the good will overcome the darkness, and light will shine in the end, and all of that. So, yeah.
Well, one of my young buddies on Facebook wrote that it was that the redeeming part of it for him was the selflessness, the idea that people sacrifice selflessly for the sake of what's good.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much how he put it. And he said it was really a very, the way he put it was actually a very strong model that should apply to the way we lead our Christian lives as well.
Right.
The willingness to sacrifice and be selfless.
The selflessness, though, came with some reluctance. You have there are scenes in there too, and even you go back to the original movie, Han Solo was the reluctant hero. He was dragged into it, and he had other motives. And you even in this one, when you look at the female character, who is Rey, is a great lead, is that she's trying to survive, and she has an opportunity to make a bunch of money, and does not do that. There's a reluctance to be selfless, but they realize that is a higher goal, a higher calling for them to be that.
Yeah.
So
the former stormtrooper,
right,
and how he agonizes through this process.
That's in the very opening scene, so it's not a spoiler.
Yeah. There's no spoiler there. So so it plays on all those themes, and they know how to weave those together pretty well. I mean, it's a formula.
Well,
and it's any of these.
A guy just wrote a book on this. The formula of every Star Wars movie is identical.
Yeah, basically.
Seriously, how cool is that?
But that's also why it's comfortable too.
Yeah.
In fact, this movie has all the themes of the original, of The Empire Strikes Back, The Return of the Jedi. Has all the themes in it.
Yeah, Death Star.
It's all the same stuff. It's just regenerated in a way that's going to allow it to carry on for 4 more movies.
Yeah. Sort of like liturgy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing every week with a slightly different take on it. Is that what you're saying?
I can see
I
that.
just wanted to get involved. I've never seen the movie, but I went to church once.
We're going to have an intervention, I can see. We're going to have to strap him down and tape over the eyes so they stay open.
No.
We'll start bringing up scenes from the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this wraps us up for this year, and so we
merciful.
and we guys, I appreciate how much you guys volunteered your time to help bring this program together too, and again,
volunteered.
Thank you for joining us for Faith Matters. Maybe Doc's last time. I don't know.
Thank you for joining us for Faith Matters. Email your comments, questions, and suggestions to faithmatters@thetalkstation.com.
Give me faith, trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Give me faith.
Faith Matters is a production of The Talk Station.